During a conversation this week with the Daily Mail, former Republican House Speaker but current Republican lawmaker Kevin McCarthy suggested that Matt Gaetz might not be in Congress for much longer. Because according to what McCarthy said, and he tried to be kind of cryptic about it, but McCarthy hinted at the fact that the House Ethics Committee has uncovered pretty serious, possibly criminal activities from Matt Gaetz. Now, let's not forget, obviously, recently the House Ethics Committee released their very damning report on George Santos that is going to lead to his expulsion. But at the same time, for even longer, by the way, they have been investigating Matt Gaetz. It was an investigation that they were doing, and then they dropped it, but recently they picked it back up. And McCarthy says that even though he's not on the Ethics Committee, he's seen and he's spoken to some of the people on the Ethics Committee, and they've got some stuff, but he won't tell us what. Here's what McCarthy told the Daily Mail. I can't be involved in that. I do know that what people have said and written about it seems even worse than Santos, and I know where Santos ends up. That's all we got, okay? It's cryptic, right? It's interesting, especially because earlier this week we did get the reports about the Ethics Committee expanding their investigation into Matt Gaetz. And now, 2 days after that, we have Kevin McCarthy coming out and saying, hey, listen, I've talked to some people. I've seen some things written down on that committee, and I got to tell you, it makes Santos look like child's play. And we all know where Santos ends up. Where Santos, not where he has ended up, but where he ultimately ends up. So here is my personal interpretation of what Kevin McCarthy is saying here. Let's start at the end, right? That's the most logical place to start usually, right at the end. But no, he says, we know where Santos ends up, meaning he has not ended up there yet, but he is going to end up there in the future. There's two possibilities with that. The first one, obviously, is he ends up being expelled from Congress, because at the time of this, Santos had not yet been expelled. So that's one place he ends up, but you don't end up necessarily, you wouldn't use that phrase if you were talking about a situation. It sounds more like Kevin McCarthy is referring to a place, right? Because that's where you end up. And the place that I think Kevin McCarthy is referring to where Santos ends up, because he said where he ends up, so he is referring to location, is prison. I think it's pretty obvious to pretty much everybody in this country at this point that when Santos's trial commences next September, he's probably going to be found guilty based on what the House Ethics Committee alone came up with. So, if McCarthy is referring to Santos ends up in prison, so then we go back a little further into the conversation, right? And McCarthy says, it seems even worse than Santos. So we're not talking about a couple little ethical flaws with Matt Gaetz. We're not talking about, oh yeah, he's a scumbag type stuff. We're talking about it's worse than Santos in terms of potential criminality. And Santos's is so bad that it's safe to assume he will end up in prison. But what Matt Gaetz did is apparently worse than that. Now, even though the DOJ had decided at the time to not bring charges against Matt Gaetz, that does not mean that the DOJ cannot bring charges against Matt Gaetz. If the House Ethics Committee comes out with information that is so overwhelming, the DOJ may have no choice. Public backlash, public pressure, new evidence they hadn't considered could in fact lead the DOJ to not only reopen, but to then criminally charge Matt Gaetz. But it all hinges on this one cryptic message that Kevin McCarthy sent out this week. Hey everyone, this is Aspen. And did you know that for the low cost of $0 per day, you can subscribe to the Fair and Balanced YouTube channel? We also encourage you to like, comment, and share, but again, click that subscribe button and help Aspen. Oh, not be so grumpy.